All right, welcome to another episode of SEC baseball previews from Southern Sports Gumbo. I'm going to dive in with Texas baseball tonight. Little recap of their 2025 season. They finished 44 and 14, 22 and 8 in the SEC for first place. They did lose in a home regional to UTSA to end their season last year. Jim Schlossnagle is going into his second year as the headman for the Longhorns. In 23 years of being a head coach between UNLV, TCU, A&M, and now Texas, he's only missed postseason play 3 times with 7 appearances to Omaha. So some of the key losses for the Longhorns this year: Dylan Galvan, who hit 296, 15 homers, 14 doubles, 47 RBIs last year, and was their everyday catcher. Uh, Graduated Kimball Schusler, their first baseman, who hit 312 with 15 doubles, 8 home runs, and 45 RBIs, is gone, as is shortstop Jalen Flores, outfielder Max Ballou, outfielder Will Gasparino, and outfielder Tommy Farmer, who combined for 36 home runs, 52 doubles, and 157 RBIs. Um, Will Gasparino is going to UCLA now, transferred out, and Tommy Farmer transferred to UCR Irvine. So they do lose quite a bit in the field. On the mound, they return 10 of their top 13 guys. Their only key loss to me is Jared Spencer, who logged a 3.27 ERA through 10 starts and struck out 66 through 52 innings. Where I think a key piece for them is their key returners on the mound, but I'm going to lead off with the field. First, Ethan Mendoza, their second baseman, led the team with a 333 batting average, 9 doubles, 4 triples, 5 home runs, 35 RBIs, and 15 stolen bases a year ago. Adrian Rodriguez, who was a freshman last year, who played mostly third, slides over to shortstop this year. He hit 313 with 14 doubles and 7 home runs last year. And then Casey Borba is going to step in to be your everyday first baseman after hitting 272 with 10 doubles, 12 home runs, and 47 RBIs. Now on to the mound. The Longhorns return over 350 innings pitched last year and over 370 strikeouts from last year's pitching staff. They're going to be led by star sophomore Dylan Valantis. Luke Harrison is going to be their Saturday guy, really strong 1-2 punch, and then plenty of depth behind him. And Jason Flores, Ruger Rojas, Thomas Burns, Max Grubbs, and Cade Bing. So their pitching staff is going to be their strongest point of their roster. And then some of their newcomers here. Catcher was a position of need after losing Galvan, and they went after Carson Tenney and got him from Notre Dame, who hit 348 with 13 doubles and 17 home runs. Aiden Robbins, the outfield transfer from Seton Hall, hit 422 with 19 doubles, 6 home runs, and walked 44 times to just 32 strikeouts and added 20 stolen bases. And a mostly new look outfield for the Longhorns. They're going to hope that his numbers at Seton Hall translate to the SEC. Pitcher that I like that they added is Hayden LaFou from Wake Forest. Finished the year last year with a 4.4 ERA and 59 punchouts in 34 innings. And then lastly, I'm going to include a freshman here, one of my favorite freshmen in the SEC this year, Michael Winter. 6'5", 225 on the mound, already built for college baseball. He's coming off a senior year in high school where he struck out 100 batters in 60 innings and only walked 4 guys in those 60 innings. So that shows the control that he has. He's got a nice 3-pitch mix with a fastball in the mid to upper 90s, a changeup, and a slider. And there are a few other newcomers to mention. I won't go through their stats, but Ashton Larson, an outfielder from LSU, Timo Bacara from Stanford, he'll play third base. Anthony Pax, a really good freshman outfielder, and then Brett Crosland and Sam Cozart are two two really good freshman pitchers as well. Crossland has the heater up to 100 plus as a freshman. So for their lineup, Carson Tenney will be their catcher. You've got Borba at first, Mendoza at second, Becerra at third base, Rodriguez at shortstop, and then I like Ashton Larson, Aiden Robbins, and Josh Livingston to be their outfield. Jonah Williams, who also plays football, will factor in, but as he's also away from the team for spring football at times, it'll be interesting to see how much he factors in. And then I already talked about the 1-2 punch of Volantis and Harrison. I think Jason Flores is going to be your Sunday guy. So that leaves a ton of depth in the bullpen for them with, Burns, Rojas, Grubb, being LeFou, Burns, and Winter may move into that midweek role as a freshman, and you'll have Cozart and Crossland in that bullpen as well. A few breakout players for me on this team this year. Mendoza, who's coming off a solid season, leading the club with a 333 average. While power wasn't an everyday piece of his game last year, I expect the average to go up a little bit and him get to that 8 to 10 home run season. He put a lot of time in the off season to get a little more pop in the bat. And then Jason Flores, after kind of a hybrid role of starting 5 games, making 9 relief appearances as a freshman, he's a guy who I think is going to make a huge step into his sophomore year. He's got a sinker sitting in the 95, 97 range, low 90s cutter, and a nice sweeper and changeup to round out his arsenal. And then my third pick to click is Ashton Larson, the transfer from LSU. He was productive as a freshman for LSU, yeah, and then just kind of got buried on the depth chart last year and could never crack the everyday lineup in his 2 years at LSU. But I expect him to be a key piece at the plate, hitting for a lot of average for this team. So, what are your thoughts, Evan, on where their roster sets up right now?
Love Texas roster. They're preseason top five in every poll, and they should be. Maybe preseason top three is where they should be. You mentioned their pitching staff, tremendous depth, not just depth, proven. Volantis, great number one guy. He was a closer last year, and I mean, might have been the best closer in the country. 1.84 ERA. Um, and then Harrison was a proven number one last year, sliding back to the two spot. I agree with you. I think Flores is their third guy, and I really like him for two reasons. Uh, walks and hits per innings pitch 1.02. Anything under 1.2 is good. So when you're right around that one range, that is elite. So I think he will be very good for them. And then I also like Riojas, Grubbs, their bullpen again, very deep. When you look at their lineup too, it's a combination of good hitters, power, good defense. I think the thing that has to watch early just to say, okay, are they going to maximize what they have? Can Adrian Rodriguez take the transition from third base to shortstop? If he does that, their lineup is extremely dangerous because he's a really good hitter. And then that allows other people to step in and play third. Like Tenney, 500 on base percentage, and 753 slugging. Think he's a good player. You mentioned Mendoza. He hit 333 last year. If he improves on that, he's going to be all SEC type player. Orba's a solid player at first. Robbins, 652 slugging last year, 422 batting average. Really good player. Timo Bakar is the one that could potentially play third. So the team's loaded, and you mentioned Schlossnagle. He took A&M to the runner up a couple years ago with Tennessee. But to me, where you really stood out as a coach was the years that he was at TCU. Took them, I believe it was 3, 4 College World Series in a row at one time at a program that didn't have any baseball history. So, he's definitely top 5 in college baseball coaching, maybe top 2 or 3. So you put him in a school like Texas with the resources, and that's why they hired him. They knew what they were doing, and I think he's got a great roster. Look, won the regular season in the SEC last year. Had a couple of injuries. Harrison got dinged up, so in the tournament they weren't as strong. But it says, taking that team in his first year with what he had, winning the regular season, um, what he can do with this team with a loaded roster. There's no weaknesses and there's depth everywhere. So really like this team. Sweet, your thoughts?
Yeah, yeah, you guys covered it. I'd also add freshman Anthony Pack Jr. Don't be surprised if he works his way into the lineup. One of the top freshman outfielders in the country, and he's also one of the fastest kids coming out of high school in the country too. So I know they want to work him into the lineup, get him on base, and get him stealing bases for him as well. So it's a scary combination with a coach like him there, but it's the SEC. They'll they'll have plenty of losses. We all do. So
And then you take a look at their schedule breakdown. Yeah, they've got an interesting non-conference schedule. They're going to host USC Upstate for a weekend series, and then they play in one of the college classics. They're playing Coastal Carolina, Baylor, and Ohio State. That's going to be a Friday night game against Coastal. So you're going to have Volantis and Cameron Flukie from Coastal dueling that night. And then they also play UTSA in a midweek, who's the team that knocked them out of their home regional last year. So when you look at their SEC slate, definitely favorable for the Longhorns. They're missing Arkansas, Florida, LSU, Georgia, and Kentucky. They're hosting Mississippi State and traveling to Auburn, Vandy, and Tennessee. So they also host Ole Miss, Oklahoma, Alabama, and Missouri, and also travel to South Carolina and A&M. I've got them as the least difficult SEC schedule in the SEC. Texas has found a way to strike pretty well these last 2 years with their schedule. Any thoughts on their schedule, Kevin?
Yeah, look, they're a good team, and Schlossnagels always like to play competitive schedules, and I think they have. I think SEC wise, it's a little softer than most. But they play some non conference games that are competitive, and overall they play enough games in the SEC that they'll be tested. I guess I was disappointed to see the Arkansas Texas series kind of fall out. If you look over the years historically, that's been a big rivalry, and they're both two good baseball teams. And I think it would be great for both schools if they would play every year in baseball. But that one slid out. Again, I like the team. I think regular season they're going to win 45 plus. I think SEC they're probably going to go somewhere along the lines 22-8, 20-10. Again, the SEC is tough, so you're not going to you know win all your games by no means. But I could definitely see them as a 22-8, 22-10 top 2 or 3 team in the SEC in my opinion. Too much pitching. They're going to have series that they sweep. They just will because they're that good, and I don't see them losing many, if not, if any, 1 or 2 series. You don't when you can throw out good pitchers for 3 straight days, you're just not going to lose many. And Valantez is a true Friday starter, and if he's not, the guy that started last year was. So they've got Harrison in the number 2 role. So if Valantez were to somehow not be good in that role as the Friday starter, you just roll Harrison back into that role and just keep it going. And put Velanez back in the bullpen, I guess. I say that, I don't think that happens. I think Velanez is one of the best pitchers, and will be an early draft pick. So I love them. I think they're one of the best teams in college baseball. I think they're going to be really good. I think their schedule's good enough to get them prepared for the tournament. I think this is a top four seed when you get into the college playoffs, and good chance to make the College World Series. I'd be surprised if they're not in the College World Series. We like LSU. If you were playing a best 2 out of 3 at the end of the year with LSU and Texas playing each other, I think you would have great ratings and probably the best matchup you could have for a championship. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would love that to be a College World Series final. That would be an amazing, weekend. Kind of my final thoughts on the Longhorns as a whole, very rarely do you see a team that really only returns 3 starters from a year ago be as good as this team is. With Mendoza, Rodriguez, and Borba, that's a solid base. Adding guys like Tenney and Robbins really gives them one of the most dangerous teams at the plate. The pitching staff is just gonna be phenomenal. I mean, you've got Ruger Riojas, who, was a key piece of their team as a starter back into the season, who's gonna be coming out of the bullpen a lot this year. Anytime you're bringing back a ton of innings and a ton of strikeouts, you're in a good position on the mound. I think Texas goes 20-10, feels like a safe place to put them. Um, should set themselves up to be a top 8 national seed. Schlossnagel's had success everywhere he's been. Took A&M to Omaha twice in 3 seasons. So that leaves me with one more question. Will he lead the Longhorns to Omaha in year 2? I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna make the prediction of yes. Texas gets to Omaha this year. What are your thoughts?
Sweet, you got any thoughts on it? He's
I put in with you. Listen, he's a hell of a coach. They've got a great lot. There's talent. They're deep in their pitching staff, deep in the bullpen, infield, outfield. They're loaded for bear. That being said, you still got to go out, perform, and do it in big spots. And so while I think that they are one of the better teams in the SEC, still got to go out and show it. But yeah, I would put them in. Kev?
Yeah, I've already said I think they're going to be in the College World Series. I think they'll be a top four seed, and again, I would love to see them and LSU in a matchup.
That's a wrap on Texas baseball tonight. Remember to like, follow, subscribe. This is our ninth SEC breakdown. Got 7 more to get to you guys before the season starts. So we'll see you soon.